3, 4, 5. We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, sometimes, well, most times, we go deep. And today we have a very special treat for you, a special discussion that we had about, I want to say a month ago, with Brains Gone Bad and Aim for the Head podcast. Two lovely, special podcasters that have been around for a little while, whom I listen to often, especially when it comes to the Walking Dead universe. And so the whole conversation was actually 2 hours and 50 minutes, and I condensed it to a concise hour 20, and then Rachel and I recorded an outro. So it's just, the whole thing's roughly about an hour and 40 minutes, including this schmuck here talking right now. So without further ado, however, I did want to take a tiny moment to announce a couple things in the Walking Dead universe, among which are the announcements of the return of Fear the Walking Dead 6B, the back half, the rest of the 9 episodes coming in April. Obviously, we've said this a couple times, but it's worth repeating. The Walking Dead 10C, 8 more episodes, or is it 6? Who cares? It's coming back February 28th. So yeah, just another month and change until we get some more Walking Dead content. The promos are coming out. I know the last month, it's always like the key art comes out, the videos come out, the hype comes out. We're all here. Don't worry, Rebecca. We got people here and there, and Sharon's going to be coming on soon too. So, yeah, stuff is happening. Stuff is happening again. The economy just keeps on going. So, I think that's really about it. I want to alert you guys too, since Frank is here, Frank from Discussing the Dead on Instagram. Discussing the Dead is one word. He and our friend Ben from Just Keep Walking podcast had a short conversation this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S., so that was about 10 hours ago. If you want, check that out on Just Keep Walking's Instagram account. It'll eventually make its way to the YouTube, to Just Keep Walking's YouTube page, so if you want to see that visually, it was an Instagram Live. So check that out. That was a very nice discussion, of which I popped on there a little bit to lend some insights and funnies, as we do. Got Rachel, Sharon D. So you're not alone, Rebecca Punch. You're not alone at all. Frank's here, obviously. So yeah, and definitely check out Discussing the Dead on Instagram. Very cool. It's like a mix between like a TWD True Facts kind of account, and then just an overall swell guy. Like, if you're pro Lori, you've got my attention. So, in any case, enjoy this little round table of us discussing The Walking Dead World Beyond's first season thus far. It's nice to get out of our bubble and discuss and have a difference of opinion, and you'll see sparks. I mean, you'll see, like, not sparks fly, but you know, when you're trying to create a fire, you see this little smoke. That's pretty much all it is. The end of the day, this is a very rewarding conversation because we got to see each other's point of view. We got to laugh a little. We got to, poke fun a little bit. But then we got to add our little flavor that we like to do. We had a little flavor of our, we love everything. And we'll tell you why, or else we'll beat it into you. JK. Anyways, have a very good one. Enjoy this conversation. It is an audio-only podcast, but I added some visual flair to it. Some little visual flair. And anyway, I'll be here in the chat as this episode premieres, so chat with me. Tell me what you agree with. Tell me what you don't agree with. Tell me what you really didn't like. And away we go. I am David Cameo, and we are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. Rachel and I were invited by Lizzie and Kim from Brains Gone Bad and joined by Steve from Aim for the Head podcast. The main focus of the conversation was discussing The Walking Dead World Beyond's first season. Links to the full almost 3-hour conversation are in the episode description. First off, we highly recommend listening to Brains Gone Bad and Aim for the Head podcast. Links to their podcasts are also in the episode description. Second, as you may or may not already know, our podcast has always been about the value we derive from breaking down the Walking Dead universe, which means that it's not often that we seriously criticize the episodes we break down. We definitely poke fun at some things because, again, sometimes we make you laugh. Keeping all of that in mind, the episode that we bring you today is a 3-hour conversation broken down a lot like a Squawking Dead episode. Basically, the conversations that we, as hosts, derive value from, with some narration by me, David Cameo, along the way. I sincerely hope you enjoy this breakdown and encourage you to listen to the entire conversation in full. And without further ado...
How in the hell has Rick Grimes not been able to take down the CRM?
That's Kim from Brains Gone Bad.
We don't know. Maybe he has.
Well, he couldn't even beat Negan, so...
I know. Isn't that the thing? Here. I mean, wait a minute. Didn't he beat Negan, though?
Lizzie from Brains Gone Bad. I think Eugene beat Negan.
Yeah.
But Rick sliced his throat.
Oh yeah, it was a cheat.
Put him in jail.
Yeah. And then saved his life. Yeah.
You have to remember though that Rick doesn't have any shoes, so how can he do anything in the CRM?
Steve from Aim for the Head podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another question. Why did he give up his boots?
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
It was the phone and the boots. It was like a package deal. He had to go with both.
Yeah.
They gave him new boots when he joined the military.
Right, exactly.
Or he's on one of those racks with Dr. Abbott and he doesn't need anything but a loincloth.
Dun 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 dun. Or he has like those Velcro sneakers, from New Balance. So that's
Okay. I like those. Maybe
the ones
orthopedics. If you ever saw him in those, wouldn't you just die? I'd be like, oh my God.
I could totally see it too.
No, don't even see it. That's
it's like it's the level that Andrew Lincoln himself has gone to. Like, oh no, the character has Velcro sneakers.
I want to throw out some theories about why maybe Rick hasn't been able to do anything and separated from his family and friends. Threats. They say if he tries to contact them, they're just going to drop a bomb on him or something like that.
What we say about the CRM in general is that if you see them or they see you, you are already dead.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like a no winning battle.
Yeah. Another thing is his memory impaired. That was a pretty serious injury. Maybe he had some blood loss and doesn't quite remember. And the memory's coming back, and that's how the sketch came about on his phone. One of my ongoing theories is Iris is the sketch artist, that she was also folded into this group and ended up in a work camp like Barca and Rick. Obviously, they were in some kind of labor position, or maybe it was something more higher up. But so those are my main ongoing theories for Rick. And we've already been told by Gimple that we're not going to see Rick in the series in World Beyond. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to get that out there because we would be going crazy waiting for Rick to show up. And was it Rachel, was that you or Dave that was talking about looking at the crowd of this possible resistance group and Rick in every one of their faces?
Oh, yeah, that was me. At one point I thought they all could be Rick. And then the very next moment, they looked like just, forest people.
Regular shaggy guys.
A couple of background actors we know.
Wasn't it you guys that proffered that it could be the people that Huck brought out, from the army that she saved?
That's funny because it was a post-production note that it suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, who are these people? Where could they have been from? Why would Huck know who they are and where they are? And then after we wrapped on recording and I was doing the editing and I was just like, oh, okay. So these are the people that Huck saved back from the beginning in her flashback, because was it Cameron Bonamalo from comicbook.com had posited that Huck's backstory just doesn't exist. And it was such a strong theory and people were really going on with it. And I was kind of like, and I had to fight it because on the one hand, it doesn't make sense that only we know her backstory because she has not told anybody. On the other hand, it just seems kind of weird that, you know, they would show us, and then it suddenly occurred to me, like, first of all, how does she know that there's help 5 miles up, you know, for Felix and Iris?
Yeah.
And so putting those two things together, I was like, oh, it is Middleton, New York, because the Garnett Medical Center is a real place in Middleton, New York, which is around where they were training, or the Marines were based.
Yeah.
Right. So it just put 2 and 2 together, and finally I figured it out, and it was kind of like, oh, then it has to be real. It has to be. And now there's a purpose to all these people.
At any rate, I think you guys are spot on with that. I think that's how she knew, because she led them to some place, and maybe that's part of, you know, her screw up that her mom is talking about.
But that happened 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago.
I know,
so.
but it doesn't mean that the screw up didn't just happen, but it could be part of the screw up, or it could be something that she's kept for herself or something. I don't know, but that's it.
Yeah, the screw up thing, we're still kind of working out. Like, I think we don't have enough to really go on at like what it was that she screwed up with the CRM. This is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on one way or the other. Like, in terms of, was it screwing up with the USMC? Was it screwing up just before leaving for Omaha? I'm not really sure. Yeah, because it's that span of time, like you said, Kim.
Yeah.
Lizzie calls on me first to discuss the first point in our roundtable discussion. I kind of steer in the direction of what characters and what scenes hit you out of nowhere emotionally. The characters themselves seem to have touched each viewer differently. Like, everybody seems to have their favorite character, but also in terms of scenes themselves, sometimes the scenes themselves hit people differently throughout the series too. And we found this out, like, when we were talking about it throughout the series. It's kind of like, oh yeah, this scene, like, for instance, okay, the because this is what I really wanted to talk about was in Shadow Puppets. I really liked that opener, that Shadow Puppet opener, and I was kind of like sitting up in my seat and going, oh, is this the new opening? Is this the one that's going to be the one throughout the entire series? Because I didn't know it was coming. And then, you know, I sit down and I realize, okay, I guess this is because it's called Shadow Puppets. I guess that's why it's like this. And then, but we get to the end and they do the whole show over again, like the origin of the Shadow Puppet intro, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of like that they didn't have Iris's voice. Rachel will fight me on this one, but she said she would have preferred the Iris chime in again with the opener. I actually like that there wasn't any, because by the end of the episode, you're so empty. There's like this sense of just morose sadness. And all of a sudden, I'm watching this and I'm seeing the reactions from each of the characters. And I find myself starting to get like really emotional about it, because it's like watching this world, like everybody's at their lowest point, you know, realizing where they're at. Like, oh, we've just been fooled. We've been tricked. We've been put through the ringer. This is what the world's like. This is what people are like in this world. And then all of a sudden, these very people that fooled them are showing them their point of view via art. And it really hit me hard. Like, especially when the flower came out, like, you know, the shadow flower, you know, the beauty within the tiger and the lamb, like it's the beauty that's within the terror, that kind of thing. And it really hit me hard. And I kind of liked that there wasn't any voiceover, because we had that. And so just watching and being there, like watching it with them in a way, with the characters, like really, really brought that out. But, you know, so in the context of this conversation, I was wondering if any of you guys had a particular moment throughout the series that hit you where you didn't really expect it.
Just gut punches over disappointment.
Shots fired.
Yeah. I just want to ask one question based on those shadow puppets. I don't know if I'm missing the eloquence of it or what. Why was it shown twice? Wouldn't it have been better to not have Iris talk about it at all, like talk over it at the beginning at all, and just have them see it later in the episode? I think it would have been more impactful. I enjoyed seeing it a second time, especially without the commentary, but I just didn't get the point of seeing it twice.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I liked it without the commentary because that's what art does. Art makes you imprint your own commentary on it and look at it and how it affects you. And that's what I thought Iris was doing in the beginning. That was how she viewed it. But you could see their faces as it was unfolding. And they not only experienced the loss, they didn't get to spend very much time at all in the other world. the world that we know now. And
Right.
that scene too is my favorite in the whole season.
Oh wow.
It doesn't. It's the shadow puppets. It's not even the characters, Kim.
Well, it was the whole package. The reaction.
See, I really wanted that scene to affect me the way that it did you, Dave. I wanted to be emotional about it, but when we heard Iris in the beginning giving the commentary over the shadow puppets, and then when we see it later, I wanted to be drawn in, but all I could focus on was, what did Iris say before? I can't remember what she said. And so then I'm just sitting through this whole scene trying to remember what was said already.
Right.
And I missed it. I missed the whole thing.
And this is mostly attributed to our pedantic note-taking nature. It's like
yes.
and so this is something we talked about also. We had to talk about at some point, because just to keep everybody within the context of our times right now, like when we were watching this, we were watching 2 episodes a week and we had to cover 2 episodes a week. So our brains started going into this mode where every time we started watching for pleasure, our minds were already jumping to note-taking.
Yep. Yeah.
When I watched the Shadow Puppets, the first time, I liked the opening. I thought that was a really impressive opening just because it was so different. But when I saw it the second time, and I now had context as to what it was, and the fact that Tony and the Grifter kid were that's what they did, my only thought was, okay, so this is your show that you perform for people for like food, and you're basically pointing out that the world has died and everyone's going to be killed and horribly destroyed.
Thank you.
Is that a good marketing plan? I'm like, really? But I don't know if I'm going to be listening to Lizzie there. I think she might be on my side, but I really didn't like this show
As a whole, yeah.
Yeah, so I was very disappointed with this show, and so that decision kind of just fit right in with a lot of other decisions that they made. So I kind of just went, yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
I said the same thing. I said, how depressing. They are going around trying to raise money, depressing people. Yeah, good luck.
Right.
Yeah. It was great artistry. And back in the day, like before the pandemic, I think, we might have found anything about a pandemic interesting and, full of wonderment. I wonder what we would do. But now in the pandemic,
I think I liked it more for the context of it. So, as an opener and as kind of like, because I don't know, maybe it's just me because I was kind of like fooled. I felt kind of fooled, like, oh, this is how the show's going to open from here on, and who knows? I kind of liked the idea of the story, just recapping the story from a particular point of view, and then having that whole entire shtick, the whole entire Shadow Puppets routine means something else by the end of it. Like seeing the same movie twice, but then because you went through something, it means something else.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like why I liked it, and I especially liked it at the end where it wasn't with Iris, because we already know what it means. We already know what the shtick represents, but it means something so much different by the end of the episode because of what these kids have gone through, having this breaking point, feeling, robbed, of what they were led to believe this would be, or people would be like. And so that's kind of why I liked it. And to kind of answer the question about like, why would I want to see something about, like, I definitely don't want to see anything about the coronavirus, but like, but why would I want to see something that I'm wrapped up in? I think it's about connection, like being able to touch the thing that we're all going through, but then showing you from a particular point of view, the point of view of the minstrels, let's say, like the people putting on the show. And I think specifically for Tony and Percy, it was their way of saying, hey, we get it. Let me show you how we see the world. And I think that really, obviously doesn't absolve them of everything, but it's kind of like, we're just like you, and here's why. And so that's kind of why I like that. And
how they were getting through, and it.
Yeah, exactly.
Singing for their supper with those little tricks that they had. I really did enjoy it, and I was so glad to get a second look at it when it came back around.
Rachel goes next in our roundtable discussion and decides to talk about her little explorer, Elton.
I would like to talk about my little explorer, Elton.
He's so cute.
Whom she just painted, by the way.
I did. I had to show my appreciation. I think Elton is a really kind of special character. He's different, and to be totally honest, I'm a little worried for his future.
Yeah.
I mean, Elton is not, he's not our leader. He's not a genius. He's not a monster or a protector or a spy. He doesn't fit into any of these specific roles that the other cast members have, or the other, characters have.
I was just going to say, Rachel, I don't think you have anything to worry about in terms of Elton, because the showrunners for this show, as well as the showrunners for Fear, have shown zero balls when it comes to killing anyone. So,
Yeah.
Well,
both of these shows, there was never any moments at all this season where I had, and don't get me wrong, Fear this season was much better than last year. Last year was essentially unwatchable. This year was much better. But there was never a moment in either of these two seasons for either show where I was like actually concerned one of the main cast members was actually going to die. Which I think both of these shows have missed the boat on. That was what we loved about the main show, and what we hated about the main show was that unless your name was Rick Grimes or Michonne or Daryl Dixon, you could die at any minute. You get
no
an arrow
plot
in your
armor
eye like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have so many amazing characters that will break your heart if they die.
Yeah. And like my thought on this show, if I was the showrunners, what I would have done if the setup is okay, it's going to be the 4 kids making the trip across the country and discovering what's out there. I would have set it up in the first episode, and there would have been 5 kids.
Yes.
And the 5th kid would be this really great, charismatic, athletic guy or gal that you think, wow, that's the hero of the show. And then by episode 3, that guy or gal gets, the rest of them are in a revolving door watching them get torn to shreds.
Exactly.
And that's like the sobering up moment for all these little children that, hey, you know what? You're out in the world now, and you're not behind the walls, and you got to fend for yourself. And if you're not careful, you're going to die.
What's funny about what Steve says is that I wanted to make 2 points. One, The Walking Dead, as helmed by Frank Darabont, you had both the deaths of a young person, Sophia, and also the teddy bear walker right from the beginning scene with Rick coming out into the world as it is. So it's interesting to note how at some point the Walking Dead universe has shied away from showing us the bodies of dead children or baby or children walkers. And the second point was how Utopia actually did this sort of thing, where they took the main protagonists and chose the one that was the most well-adjusted, beautiful, smart of the group and murks them right from the beginning. This is one of the things that actually jarred me to my core when I was watching Utopia and almost made me not want to watch it anymore. However, I stayed with it and found I actually really, really liked the show. So after a couple of minutes talking about how much everybody hates Iris and or maybe Aaliyah Royale, I decided to... Pivot! This kind of makes me want to go back to Elton in a ways, because the very first thing was like, oh, we feel like he's going to be, cadaver chum, as Ginny would put it.
Yeah.
And so, but like in looking at each and every person except for maybe Silas, I mean, they all in some way are cadaver chum. They each have their own sets of weaknesses, whether it's physical strength or mental strength or, what have you. Maybe aside from even like hope, but this is something we say often on the show, like how we're, we all think we're going to be Daryl Dixons, but we're all kind of technically Eugenes,
Yeah.
Right.
And then we found out, like we were recently talking about this on our retrospective, how like, well, maybe we're actually Marthas.
Yeah.
If you really think about it. Because that's what we would do. We all think we're hot shit, and then all of a sudden we're not. But moving back to the kids, it's kind of like when I really, really think about it, the kind of chances that they stand, I consider them a step ahead of us, like a couple steps ahead of us in terms of what they know about the universe and what they're familiar with. Like we're watching it through a screen, but they're there in real life, having all this training, like knowing all this stuff about the apocalypse, the ins and outs, what to expect, how to survive out in the wild. Not everybody else gets like wilderness training and all that stuff. So I'm giving them a little bit of credit in terms of like, okay, the survivability rate of these characters may be a little higher than what we should attribute them to. But I think overall, though, they're supposed to be vulnerable. I mean, that's kind of how I view them. And I think it's a miracle that any character on the Walking Dead universe in the first place can survive, personally. Yeah. Just thinking about it objectively. So,
but I just have to strongly disagree with you as far as them being prepared to go out there. I mean, we've watched watched Iris again and again, and even as late as the finale, Hope, instead of going right at the heads with those spears, they're pushing them away constantly. And I can understand if you're feeling like there's an onslaught, there's too many of them, try to get them away from you, like knock one into the other like bowling pins. But considering that they had spent 10 years trying to survive in this world, and I mean, Elton gets out of a box and walks through the melee as a 5-year-old, you know, and manages to find safety. To me, it just seems like they should have been better fighters and better prepared. And I can understand if, as time went on, they got a little soft and maybe couldn't start a fire with a stick and some straw or something like that because they'd gotten a little too comfortable. But we look at our guys over in the original show, and they're almost at that 10-year mark, and they're still roughing it. Even when they are in Alexandria with their solar panels, like they can still go out and live in the woods. Like they're true fighters. And I don't know if it's because they're basing it on being academics at a college campus, and that's why they're soft, but they just don't seem like the fighters that they should be to me.
Campus Colony reminded me a lot of the first time we met pretty much everyone in Alexandria. They had no clue what was going on outside those walls either.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was still, like, comparatively, it was still early on. It was only a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd had their problems since they'd had to banish people. So we knew that they'd had some issues. And somehow, yet they still managed to get those walls up and protect themselves.
But I think that's what I liked about it, though, is even with all this front-loaded knowledge, like going out there in the world isn't what you're meant to expect. You think it's going to be one way, but it challenges you in a completely different way, and it turns out to be true. Yeah, but and I think subverting that expectation of them being capable was actually a kind of a good cheat code. Like, I found that it was kind of cool that they were proficient in some ways, but deficient heavily in other ways. Like,
how do you find them proficient?
I think, well, and this is the funny thing, we actually wrote off, like, okay, when Hope is taking apart the that siren at the BOG,
right.
We're like, oh yeah, she's an engineer. She probably reads a bunch of books about taking apart sirens, and we're just like, okay, that's Campus Colony nonsense. I'll leave it there. I'll allow it.
Look, she's a genius.
And then we find out later at the end that we shouldn't have written it off.
Yeah.
Well, The Walking Dead is a show. The universe has proven that children in this universe can fix anything. Plane that crashed, we can glue it back together and it'll fly. Sure. You know,
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Of course they can fix a siren. Come on, that's
it's easy peasy, right?
Child's play.
They built a raft out of like a pier piece and some barrels, you know, and they made an air conditioner into a steam engine. I mean, these kids can do anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think maybe she, like, Hope could do some of that stuff because
even Iris, we find
brewing
out too.
Yeah.
Like, she's brewing, and she's probably had to take pieces that were meant for something else and made them, you know, to work for her so that she could brew. So I think she might be a little inclined to be an engineer and take things apart. But I mean, there's still her taking apart the computer. We see her at a young age. She takes the computer apart and nearly gets it back together and working. And Iris comes in at the last minute and helps her out. But I think Hope may be one of those people that can do those things just naturally.
And this is the point I kind of wanted to drive home. They're proficient in so many ways. They're built for this. And yet, nobody's built for this. And that's why I liked so much the times when they couldn't kill walkers or the times they did falter. Now, Steve goes next, and he brings up an important safety tip that you should keep in mind whether you're in an apocalypse or not.
The one thing that ran throughout this whole season that just drove me absolutely freaking bananas was this is 10 years into the apocalypse, and yet these people are finding canned foods out in the world and like, we can eat this.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, like, I mean, at the bog, if they ate that lasagna, that Chef Boyardee lasagna, they either all would have died of botulism or they would have been unable to move because they would have been so sick. And I mean, canned goods have a shelf life of like 18 months, maybe.
Oh my God, really?
Really? Go look at it.
Definitely eaten things more than 18 months old.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Definitely.
Go look at it. If you've got a can, in your pantry, go look and see what the date is. I bet it's about 12 to 16 months from today.
Is it a sell by or best buy though?
It's a use by, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that's
my
worse.
God.
Yeah, and yet, I mean, they're eating that, and then Huck finds the Mountain Dew that's been sitting there for 10 years.
The carbonation.
Yeah. And he's
Well, we found out that is actually possible, though.
With plastic?
no,
Yeah.
no.
Mhm.
I've had soda pop go flat on me, after a month. Before,
Diet will definitely do that, and it'll actually separate. But we find out that anything with actual sugar that'll actually stay. It'll actually keep. I was surprised too when we found out after we wrapped recording on that too. So I was upset about that.
I don't know. I'm
like-
gonna beg to differ just because I am a recovering Pepsi holic. I had to switch
I love Pepsi
from
too.
oh God, my split apart. Let's run away together and drink Pepsi. At any rate, I had to switch from the plastic bottles to the cans simply because the carbonation was leaking through the porous plastic.
Mm.
Yeah.
Those new bottles, right? Basically,
I think it was
with
a
like
while
50% less plastic and all that.
No, it was a while ago because
Oh.
I've been off the sauce for over a year now.
The sugary sauce.
Yeah, I think it's going on 2 years.
Wow.
Maybe.
Whoa.
And I do have the occasional, that sweet dark mana just like oozing out.
It's such a treat too. Like I treat it.
Oh,
I rarely
yeah.
have soda, so it's kind of like when I get to have it, it's like, ooh,
Yes,
treat myself
Mama's
right
not
today.
looking right now, yeah. Maybe in the rare circumstance, under the right circumstances, it could still have the carbonation, but for this, I think that was just too much to ask for.
Well, keep in mind too that while that was going on, of course, Fear's running at the same time, and there is the episode with Dwight and Al when they search the funeral home and they find beer, and they open it up and drink it, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's undrinkable because it's gone bad." So they at least acknowledge that it happens, and yet on the other show, no, it's fine. They go to that high school, right, and they find the bomb shelter, and it's got like 12-year-old cans of sardines, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's eat that." I'm just like, you guys are so dead.
Meanwhile, we're going to the cans in our homes. If we could rub off the rust, we're okay. We'll still eat it.
I've got a case of survival food in our pantry. Does anybody else have survival food? It lasts 25 years.
Right.
No.
Those like MREs and stuff, that will. But I'm just talking about like just a can of, lasagna.
Chef
Boyardee. That stuff is not designed to last forever,
Yeah.
I got a ton of SpaghettiOs for the pandemic. I was out shopping about a week and a half before everyone else started shopping. So I was like buying SpaghettiOs because I was like, what do I really want to eat that's going to keep me happy?
Not fed, happy.
Yeah, just happy, and I went for the SpaghettiOs. So gosh, now I'm going to be eating a lot of those. But you know what? What did they call them in The Walking Dead? Something spaghetti circles? Was that what they called them?
Oh, it was on the same cans too. Like, do you remember the cans they found in the pantry in the fallout shelter? Smeat.
Yes.
That was a callback. That was in The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
But you were talking about cans, and it was so funny how like in the episode, I think it was Rage. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh no, maybe it's the wrong end of a telescope where we get that CRM. No, it's the Tiger and the Lamb where we get that end scene with Barca and what was her name?
Elizabeth
Kubelik, right?
The beautiful kitchen.
Yeah, and what we got from that one scene gave us so much to the point where we were finding out how canned foods were all the rage back in between World War I and World War II, so much so that it actually completely changed the way we actually sold food in the country. Like we were encouraged to can our goods because it would keep longer and we could ship it to other countries. And so what was really great, the takeaway from that in relation to this discussion is kind of like, well, we just canned everything without regard of like how it would keep and how long it would keep.
Right.
Like, and so this country, like, so when it comes to Chef Boyardee, like, should we still be eating Chef Boyardee out of a can? Like, I mean, why not one of those? You know how we, like, even I was like so like heartened when, and this is the stupidest hill to die on, but like when they started selling tuna fish in those plastic packets, like in water, and I was like, finally, because I was always creeped out by getting tuna from a can. And then, like,
you know why? Because the tuna juice gets on your fingers, and then you feel like even if you wash your hands, you still smell the tuna juice.
Right, and maybe it's the tuna juice with the can that kind of skews. Like, it's kind of like a fork on tinfoil. It's that idea, like you can already taste it now that I've mentioned it.
Right.
So like we haven't.
You don't have all that water.
Yeah.
It doesn't get out, and the cat isn't as happy. But really, when are they?
And going back to Chef Boyardee, it would have made you happy.
No SpaghettiOs. It's got to be SpaghettiOs. Chef Boyardee.
Oh, right. You're right. Sorry.
So I don't like it.
It's a Franco-American girl.
Okay, so I know Steve and Aim for the Head podcast, and they do have these criticisms of the shows, and sometimes it goes on and on, but I took a big swing here, and I decided to pivot. Maybe this is a good question, Steve. Were there some things that you actually kind of dug? Was it all the CRM stuff, I'm going to guess, or?
The things I liked about the show, I liked throughout the whole 10 episodes, we saw new ghouls.
Yeah.
Like the hornet ghoul.
Interesting
right?
ones.
Yeah.
Cool.
The flashlight ghoul, when Hope Hope sticks her, hits the flashlight and it's in the neck, and I'm like, wow, it has a headlight, and we see the ghouls and they're like, stuff's growing out of them, right? Or they're, stuck in something and they've just kind of become part of it. I liked that. I thought that was really interesting. And I think Fear did the same thing this year, that we saw just lots of new versions of ghouls that we hadn't really seen before.
Oh boy.
And the other thing that I really liked about this show that I just wish that the main show would do was flashbacks.
Yeah.
I loved seeing, like my favorite episode was Truth or Dare, and the only reason I like that episode is because of all the Huck Marine stuff.
Yes. She saved that episode.
She did, and I loved it, but it was a real bittersweet love for me, because when they first announced Fear 6 or 7 years ago, the press release, and you can go look it up, the way they described what Fear was going to be about, it was going to be the zombie apocalypse from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to see, was all the stuff that happened in that episode with Huck in the flashback. That's what I wanted to see. That's what I thought Fear was going to be. And Fear was like that for like 3 episodes. And then suddenly they should have changed the title to The Walking Dead again, because it was basically the same setup.
They skipped 6 weeks. They just jumped 6 weeks.
9 days. 9 days.
Oh, 9 days?
9 days.
Happened fast.
Yeah. It felt like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Rach, we were just talking about this too, Rach. I think that was you that said that, right?
Oh yeah. I had the same opinion Steve did. Yep.
Yeah. And I've loved that every episode has had someone's little backstory about how they encountered the whole thing, and I have felt that it's been super informative for us as the viewers, because I've thought for years, what would I do during a pandemic? What would I survive? Like, I expected it to be far worse like this than this. I expected it to be more like The Stand, but they're ahead of us. But to see how these people react to the whole thing, like even just Hope killing Elton's mom, and I don't even think that she really did it on purpose. I think it was all just really reflex.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
From the first episode, we surmised that.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed all of that, and I don't want that to stop, and I'm afraid that it will stop. Like, they'll just they've dangled it. We've gotten all we're going to get, and then it's going to go away.
Well, actually, going back to what Steve said initially, was that how the press release for Fear was supposed to be. The press release for this, and it's something that we have to keep in the back of our minds for The Walking Dead World Beyond, is they build it as two sisters, two halves of a whole that eventually separate and go at each other in a sense. Of course, these are my words, not theirs. The official synopsis states, the third installment of the franchise will feature 2 young female protagonists and focus on the first generation to come of age in the apocalypse as we know it. Some will become heroes, some will become villains. In the end, all of them will be changed forever, grown up and cemented in their identities, both good and bad. But the idea is that, one light, one dark, and then they'll eventually have to confront each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that you have to keep in the back of your mind, because I feel like, when is this going to happen? Like, there were so many times throughout the season where I thought, oh, is this the day that it happens? Is this where we see the split? Is this going to be a very slow thing? Are they going to do this in the first season? Are we going to have to wait till next season? But then, like, I kind of have to take a step back, kind of like when it came to Fear, it ended up not being exactly like that. So I often wonder if they're going to go through that process or give us exactly what they promised us from like 2 years ago, I think during San Diego Comic-Con.
Because like with Fear, I thought we were going to be in a school the whole time with school counselors. And I was like, this is going to blow chunks. I don't want to see this. It didn't sound compelling to me. And it makes me wonder, when we get to the end with, Iris and Felix and Hope and Huck, I just kind of felt that they are not split apart. I don't feel like, I never even got the feeling that they would be opposing one another. I just feel like somehow they will end up working together to take down the CRM. Like somehow, I don't know.
I almost wonder if once Hope gets there, if they will give her this song and dance and convince her that what they're doing is righteous and for good.
The greater good.
Yeah, exactly. What if they can convince Hope that her contribution will save the world? Could they persuade her and change her mind?
And what would they show her to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And what would that mean for her relationship with Iris?
Yeah.
Lizzie now brings up her topic of discussion for the roundtable.
Pacing. We all knew that by the time the show aired that they had settled on two seasons. And so 20 episodes to get this story told. Mm-hmm. And, it takes 4 episodes before they encounter others, when we meet Percy and Tony. And I'm like, why wouldn't there be people that didn't want to be part of the campus colony just kind of living out on their own, or, just renegades traversing the country like Percy and Tony were doing? Why did it take 4 episodes for them to come across anybody? It just didn't make any sense.
One of the reasons why we wanted to watch the show was to find out about the CRM, right? We're going to
exactly.
the Rick Grimes stuff. And I think it's a little bit disingenuous of them that almost all of the CRM stuff we got were like after the credits scenes.
Yeah.
Almost like saying, hey, you know what? We're going to trick you into watching this crappy episode just because at the very end there's going to be 30 seconds of Lila in the laboratory with the all the ghouls and that whatever that's going on with that, you know what I mean? And it's like, really, why couldn't we have had a little bit more of that actually in the episodes, that as we're watching them?
We know you're waiting for Talking Dead, but how about some Nosferatu or Into the Badlands beforehand? So anyway, after bashing Scott Gimple for about 7 minutes, I decided to finally speak up. So to counterpoint on that, though, I found that, like, okay, it's almost like you have to kind of break these things down to 2 points. One, obviously the pacing is going to be slow. You're talking about an insular series in a limited release, at least at first. And so I can agree that, maybe we could have sped it up a little bit, at least closer to the end. As much as we want to see the CRM stuff, obviously, because we came aboard because we watched The Walking Dead. We love it. We want to see more of the TWD universe in relation to it.
Yeah.
I do respect the decision to stand firm on giving these characters their due in terms of their own insular story told in their own way, and not at all even like, because I'm even like thinking back, the way they even filmed this from the walkers themselves, or the empties, let's call them, the way that they are in this universe is that they're more entrenched into the landscape, and the whole idea of deadly things being beautiful, how that resonates throughout every episode. And so in a sense, I'm not saying it's all art house or anything like that, but now whether or not you like the vision is a whole other story. But I do kind of like that they stand firm about, this is its own story, but there are tie-ins, but it is connected to a greater universe. And I kind of like the story, and I find it interesting that, like, I think most people are very tacit about this series, because I think in some ways it's a weird feeling to kind of be on the precipice of knowing that the Walking Dead main show is going to end, and yet we're so almost impatient when it comes to the content because we want it now. But the sooner that we get that content, the sooner it's going to be over. So in a way, I'm okay, A, with the pacing, but and B, with them giving them license to tell their own story in their own way, because it's kind of like, well, you could view it as filler, but want to view it a different way, but it prolongs the inevitable in a way, but it also gives me something to kind of munch on, like a carrot stick in the meantime, so that, to kind of slow things down and like get bits here in the greater universe while trying to listen to another story. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with that, especially given this like 2-month run of 2 episodes a week. Which is a lot, to tell a slow story. Yeah. So in a way, that's kind of genius too, by the way, tell a slow story with all this show.
I agree. I mean, the pacing was definitely slow. I also feel like it was by design, though. I think in the next season, we're going to see these characters do things that maybe we at first would have thought was out of character. But having watched the first season, watching these kids experience the environment the way that they do, how they react, I think they're character building. And so in the next season, when we see these characters do certain things, it's going to make sense to us.
I sure hope so.
At this point, Lizzie goes on to talk about her encounter with Joe Holt, who plays Leo Bennett, Hope and Iris's father.
I asked him, because the rumor was they were getting a 3rd season. And he said, when we were filming, we didn't even know we were getting a 2nd season.
Don't worry. I will grill Lizzie a little later on in this episode about how she even got to meet Joe Holt. Kim, however, actually asks the one question, the answer to which we all agree. However, it ends up opening up another door, thanks to me. Sorry, not sorry.
Do you think by the end of this whole thing, we'll know A, what caused it, and B, there's a cure?
Ooh.
No and no.
Yeah, I'm on that.
I second that.
And I don't want to know.
I think it's like the last scene of The Sopranos. That's how it's going out. We can think about it, but we don't really know.
By the way, I feel the same way about not wanting to know and it not going to happen. The same way I feel about no flashbacks on The Walking Dead. Pivot! That's what I liked about it.
Yeah, you've been very adamant about no flashbacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No pre-apocalypse flashbacks.
I thought you wanted flashbacks.
I do.
I do.
I would love to see Negan in the before time.
Well, you're gonna get to.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Steve, do you read the comics?
I do. And
okay, so you know.
I know, but I'm saying I still want to see it, right?
Yeah.
We are.
I can't wait to see Hillary Barton.
Thumbs down.
Yes.
Thumbs down. What's the quote about no man is an island? Anyway. The interesting thing about this conversation is that because we filmed this a while ago and we only got the new table reads for the quote-unquote Here's Negan episodes of the Walking Dead Season 10C, is that the flashback that they're showing us is not a pre-apocalypse flashback. So sometimes we give you news.
and like the anthology show that's coming, I'm really hoping that they jump around in time with that and we see early outbreak stories, not just 10, 12 years later.
I'm with you.
I'm with the rule that the unbroken rule, by the way, thus far has been on the main show. I'm okay with every other show, although it seems like the Fear the Walking Dead doesn't do that either. But on the main show there has not been, and I really want them to keep this. Now, what we kind of surmised, I think it was like our first part of episode 100 was like we had surmised that maybe the Negan flashback, or the Negan Lives flashback, or was it Negan Lives? Right. It might not actually be a flashback. It might be kind of like a Laurie's ghost kind of thing. So I think it's like allowable. I think it might be one of those things where he looks out in a certain direction and he sort of sees a play-by-play of a flashback, but it's in the setting, because I don't want them to break that rule. 10 years and they haven't broken that rule. And I'm like, keep going, go strong, go hard. Don't let up. You can tell a good show within the confines of that rule.
Well, we see a little. Well, I suppose it could be a dream. We saw a little bit of Michonne's past. She had a little.
Yeah, she did some flashback stuff.
I think that was a delusion, which is why I allowed it. That was the closest that we got, though, to some sort of flashback.
No.
I saw Lori and Shane.
Yeah.
They flashed back with them on the highway where they were watching
when Rick gets shot.
Bombed.
Yeah, but that's a pilot, right?
No. Lori,
or the first season, rather.
It was 2 or 3
episodes in.
Yeah. I think that's allowable.
I like the idea of flashbacks because I like to see where this character was and where they are now and how they've changed so dramatically.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Me too.
And not to plug my books, but
Oh, plug coming. Shameless plug coming.
But when, the episode of, the same boat with Carol and Maggie and Paula, like the reason why I ended up writing was I was like, how does a mother of 4 kids, a secretary, turn into a killer? And, like I wanted to know what was behind that. I'm all about the backstories. I love them.
Me too.
I think
it
that's
tells
why
you
I
a lot about what the character is that you're looking at. Mhm.
Yeah. How do you get there? Because it's like, what would I devolve to something like that? Like, how awful could I possibly become?
Like I said,
Or how
Martha.
dead? What's that?
I said, like, we'd all be Marthas. That's how I'm convinced. But I think,
I will totally be a Martha. Or in the camp. I'm not the one. Not much
I'd
of a
end up
choice.
at Terminus.
Just like barbecue too much.
I'm on the
I
fence
do.
somewhere.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I agree.
I'm on the fence somewhere as a walker guarding
sauce.
Oh, the fence of the sanctuary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm one of the walkers on the fence at the sanctuary.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
Right next to
I think that would be a
Simon.
place of
Yep.
honor.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
by the way, I'm not anti-flashback, by the way. I'm not anti-flash. I'm just with respect to the mother show itself. That's kind of like why I liked it. I liked it because we didn't get into all that. We're like,
But we saw
are you now?
Abraham and Eugene when they come together.
Yeah.
If we
That
did
was-
get some of that.
that was post-apocalypse, though. That was post-apocalypse. And by the way, I thought they'd broken their own rule, and I'm like, wait, we went back. I'm like, oh, that was post-apocalypse. Oh.
You're right. I was looking at it entirely wrong way. I'm totally wrong.
No,
about
and I recently had to come to grips with that too. And then even like the Lydia Alpha scenes, I was like, oh, wait, that's a pre-up. Oh no, that was
it's supposed
oh.
But
Yeah.
we do see Michonne with when her 2 zombie escorts were alive.
Right.
So that was kind of a flashback.
Yeah, that one I kind of regulate and give them a pass, only because it turns really dark
Yeah, the
Yeah.
skyline is really
in the,
weird.
in the same
Wait,
instance.
Real.
It's when we learn about Andre.
Yeah, exactly. So again, not anti-flashback in general, just more to the show, because that's what really drew me to the series in the first place. Is kind of like we didn't get mucked up in all the past scenes, who we were then, who we are now. That is more fun for me, like to muse on. Like, oh, I don't want to know because I want to make things up. Like Simon the meter maid. Like we attributed him to like a meter maid.
Yeah.
And so I could just see it, him like, fondling his mustache as he walks along, just giving people parking tickets, being nice about it, actually.
Yeah.
But like kind of that like low level cop kind of thing. And then getting power trip, right? What I like best about this next observation is that it's something I had never considered before.
It seems to me, with the longevity of The Walking Dead and the installation of Gimple as their chief content officer, that they want the franchise to become another Star Trek or Star Wars, just continue indefinitely, inspiring new stories, inspiring new money, and
Expiring more profits.
yeah.
And I'm here for it. Take my money.
Yeah, I haven't heard somebody. Ken, that's a really good framing of what they want to do, because I hadn't really thought of it that way, like in the league of Star Wars and Star Trek. But now I'm sort of, I don't have an answer. I don't have a response to that. But my wheels are turning. Because is it like that?
Thinking about it that way the whole time. Like, this is a way to just keep it going. And every year or so, we'll get a new movie or something. That there would always be something new. Because the ratings have dropped significantly, but they still have good normal ratings. Not ratings that would get you canceled.
I think that's why I haven't thought of it that way. It's like there's a consolidation. It almost feels like, the fans are kind of like family in this weird way. At this point, Kim actually turns to me and asks me what the next topic should be for the roundtable. I proceed to shit the bed, and then Rachel picks up the slack.
I had a pretty strong opinion about Hope in the beginning. Dave knows what I'm talking about. And I haven't really moved too far from center on this opinion, but I still think she's quite a little psychopath. And I saw a lot of psychopathic tendencies in
Oh
her.
yeah.
And I don't know, like I said, I still am holding on to that opinion. However, I see a little bit of a human side to her when Iris is around. Right after she shoots Amelia, she takes planet Jupiter from her bracelet.
Yeah.
And she holds on to it all these years.
Trophy.
That is
Yeah.
exactly
that is
what I
exactly
said.
right.
She
Yeah.
took a trophy from her first kill, and she's constantly fondling it and like reminiscing and
reliving the moment.
yes, exactly.
Like she wishes she took a picture or something.
Selfie.
Yeah.
Sketched. Yeah, I mean, I guess when you put it in that respect, yeah, I've been like, what is with her? You know, but not wanting to voice it even to myself inside my own head, like what is with her. But to me, she definitely came across as troubled, and I think I took the easy way out, which was the direction that the writers drove me in, to think, oh, she's carrying around this guilt for having killed this woman, you know, not knowing that it was Elton's mom. But it seems like
I thought that too, yeah. Well, now that I've gotten my shit together, I proceed to ask the following question about one of the most interesting characters on this show. Well, first of all, did you guys like Huck, in a sense?
I
Because
did.
it's a lot to swallow, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even
the two
after we
sides.
found out she killed people, I still liked her.
Maybe
She's the only one on the show that killed people. Come on.
Yeah, and maybe especially so, in a sense, like the complex nature of her.
She seemed far too simple. I mean, I liked her simplicity.
Rachel, I'm looking at you.
You know, when we meet her and she's just happy-go-lucky, she's like the dog that just wants to go along for the walk, and she's got this really close relationship with Felix. The first time that we had a question mark on her, when she was like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna go out and scout for about 48 hours.
2 days. 2 days.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
I'll be back.
Yeah,
you
wait
know?
right here.
Yeah, like I was like waiting for her to say, I think I'm gonna need you to come in on Saturday or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Sunday too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm thinking, all right, what's up with this? Where is she going? Who is she meeting? And I wasn't automatically thinking she was a spy, but I don't know, the hair stood up a little bit.
Right.
I definitely thought it was shady, but I couldn't wrap my head around what it could be.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Well, the reason why I laughed so hard when you were describing Huck as simple is because Rachel, she wasn't even about to. She was like, "Oh, can you edit this out? I don't want to talk about this on the show." But why don't you tell everybody why I'm laughing?
About Annette?
Yeah, from the first episode, because that was what really.
Okay, I think I can say this a little bit more confidently now, because I think, well, we all know what's really going on, but yeah, after we broke down our first episode, one of the comments I had about Annette Mahendra's performance is that it felt very kind of like over the top almost. Like, I know you can't see me right now, but I'm doing like motions with my body. You know, like she like, you know, talked with her hands a lot and was adjusting her clothes a lot. And I just got this like
inauthentic.
Yeah, like this disingenuous feeling from her. Now we know, I even said, like, it felt like she was playing a part
of Tony Danza. We narrowed it down to.
Exactly.
Felix.
Right. Now I almost feel like now I almost feel like that performance was on purpose. Like, we were meant to see her acting like someone else, becoming someone else, you know. So you know, what I thought was you know, I don't know, first day on set jitters, and it was probably her just developing this character. I mean, so much more than I even realized.
Right. Well, which we attributed to pilotitis.
Yes.
Early.
Yeah, right. She hadn't quite nailed it down yet, and she was kind of experimenting and feeling her way through it, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes complete sense to me. Like, maybe they didn't even know until that episode that she was going to be a spy.
Oh, she said that she didn't.
Yeah, I heard that she did not know when she took the part that right, at least initially, that she was going to do that. So yeah.
Well, no, but I meant that they didn't know.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Hope
I
they
don't
have that
know.
written.
Well, my topic comes with a question, though. Like, do you think that Huck is ultimately going to side with the Angels on this one, or do you think
Yes.
she's... Yeah.
Yeah.
Team Huck.
So are you hashtag Team Huck? Is the
Yes.
question.
Hard.
She's the most interesting character on the show for me. So
Yeah,
yes.
me too.
Hashtag Huck yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely.
Huck
Yeah.
love.
I think she's
Yep.
going to end up being a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or die.
Yeah.
And a
Or die,
martyr.
yeah.
I
Or
was
die
gonna
trying.
say, and a martyr.
Or die trying, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think that it's clear that she's got mommy issues. Because mommy has issues with her. And just the grand gesturing, the not, like, she seemed uncomfortable in her own skin a lot when we saw her in the beginning. It seemed like the most self-assured thing she did was to walk off for that 48 hours. Like, she knew exactly what she was doing finally. But
Well, the further she gets away from the campus colony, you can see she's like relaxes because she's not acting in front of all these people playing this part as much,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
they're out in the road, they're out in the world, they're on their own, and you see her kind of just be more natural.
she had more control.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't didn't have to keep up the appearance of this character she'd created, of Huck, who was found in the raft with a broken arm and all that stuff.
It's a long story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long story that is all BS.
Right.
None of it is true.
Yep.
So
It's funny how like Huck on the surface is more is less, and then
Yeah.
Huck under the surface, like her movements and her speech, less is more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a character, yeah.
How do you think she's going to respond when she finds out what happened at Campus Colony?
That's yeah.
I
is
think
a
that
good
might be
question. Yeah.
the turning point, because like, you know how we have characters like that she's trying to buy in, she's trying to please her mom and stuff like that, and prove that she's worthy. And I think she may have some idealism that goes along with their purpose. And everyone that's involved with the CRM, they're all about the bigger picture.
The
We're not
greater
about
good.
the one, it's the greater good.
The greater
And
good.
I think she will go back to when she rescued, the civilians and led them off. Because I do think that is a true part of her story, that she rescued people and they're the people in the woods.
Steve actually brings up a good point here that I actually end up agreeing with, somewhat.
I think one thing that this show really lacked and desperately needed was a sense of scale, because and on our podcast, Diana and I joked about this all the time, that what this show really needed was the Indiana Jones animated map moments. Where, think about it, they're in Nebraska, that's where it starts. And then in a couple episodes, they get to the Mississippi River, and then a couple more episodes happen and you don't really know where they are. And then suddenly they're 140 miles outside of Syracuse.
Oh, so you mean like geography? Like
Right. And
yeah.
I think it would have really helped. It would have helped me. And I think it would really help the audience if we would see where they are as they're making this journey
like
across
those-
the United States.
There's movies from the 50s with the line going across the map as they go westward.
The airplane.
It's the Indiana Jones
Yeah.
thing. Bum, ba-dum, bum,
Yeah.
bum, ba-dum, and all that. And this kind of ties into the other point that you guys made about, they don't discover any survivors at all until the grifters. And the stories that I would have found interesting about this as they're discovering who they are is discovering what is out there. And, it's not all CRM or Campus Colony. There's got to be other groups, and what weird things are they doing? Why don't we find a group that they worship the ghouls, or where they eat the ghouls, or
they eat you?
Yeah, well, we did that with Terminus, but
I think I have an answer to that. Like now, I'm like, this is like the most duh thing that like I just figured it out now. Like between the BOG, this never-ending fire, and Campus Colony, I can easily see how either humanity got weeded out by all these walkers coming in from different states to the BOG, but then also like between the flyers that dropped, had to have been dropped all over in and around the Omaha area about where to go for shelter, like both Omaha and Campus Colony. I think they rounded out those numbers in a sense. So like either they're all at Campus Colony, like 10,000 strong almost, or they all ended up trampled and mangled on the way to the BOG.
Wait a minute. What is the BOG?
Oh, the Blaze of Glory.
Gory.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I've totally missed something.
Yeah, but you know, again,
Made me love this.
But yeah, I definitely see your point.
it struck me as that apparently from once they got across the Mississippi River to New York, they encountered nothing because we didn't see it. They nothing at all. So and
they could have done that definitely better.
And think of the populations we're talking about of all these major cities, right? I mean, you're talking about millions and millions and millions. If we're to assume that 90% of the population has gone over to the ghoul side, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of walkers of the empty between them and where they need to go. And yet, what did we ever see other than the BOG? You know, 3 ghouls here, 5 ghouls there. I mean, it was little dribs and drabs, not these big hordes at all. And I don't know. I just think the show it really suffered from a lack of scale.
I completely agree with you, Steve, and I think we see that you had mentioned it earlier when we see Hope and Iris like shoving the walkers back instead of killing them. Like if they had traveled this far, they should be able to put down a walker by now.
Yeah,
exactly.
And to Rachel, after a couple of minutes talking about the Triceratops horn, which, I actually come in with a little bit of an interesting insight that I didn't think of before. The only thing I could say to run defense on that maybe is that, maybe it doesn't, they felt like it shouldn't matter as much as what's happening in the here and now. That's the only thing I could think of though. Like, meaning, does it matter where we are in relation to where we're trying to go if we're trying to tell a story, like, or we're trying to weave a tale within this specific episode? We want people to focus on that more than, or the overall environment as we travel rather than, what does it matter what state we're in? Because I think some people think, does it matter what state we're in at this point? Like they're all kind of a mishmash of vines and empties weaved into the tapestry, so maybe that was what they were trying to express. Like the borders are kind of erased. It's just a remnant of the old.
Their skills should have adapted. Like if we don't know where they are geographically, we should see them being better trained to put walkers down. I mean, their physical ability to protect themselves should be much more advanced, I feel like.
Rachel, what are you doing? Anyway, another opportunity for me to pivot. When we first saw Iris trying to take down a walker, that to me was the most gratifying thing I saw in the Walking Dead universe. When we first get onto the Walking Dead, it seems like, killing walkers is easy. Let's just walk over to them and just go peepity pop, and then they're down, right?
Yeah.
But in later years, obviously, like around the time that Carl gets, murked, I liked the fact that they kind of made it seem like, it can happen to anybody at any moment. You let your guard down here, you think you got this there, you don't got this. And so in recent years, I think even in a sense, maybe Fear the Walking Dead, but The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, and any episode thereafter, now you have the sense of maybe I should be on my guard. And then The Walking Dead World Beyond comes out with this episode, and the very start of the second episode is Iris trying to take down this walker. And I was like, yes, make it look hard. It is hard. And so as we go through the series, you have that implanted in your brain. And so every episode thereafter, it is a struggle. It is hard to try to figure it out. They know how to do it, but have they done it? They've done it on dummies, right? And all this stuff. But in the real world, it's a whole different story. And there's no safe space. Just put it that way. Yeah. This is the real world, and there's no safety net. I like that, to be honest. But to kind of go on the other end of that, what I kind of liked even more is how mentally, compared to even Huck and Felix, who have it bad, their pasts were bad and they stay with them, right? But the kids, for some reason, you want to talk about mastery, they figure this shit out really fast. They get beyond their traumas in such a way that they can climb over them really fast. And if you want to talk about TWD impressive, that to me is impressive, where you get to see the full gamut of how they've suffered as children, move into Campus Colony with that trauma, let it affect them in ways of, behavioral ways, like where Hope acts out, or Iris doesn't embrace her art because it's frivolous and we need to live for the future. And then, I wasn't there for my mom when she died, that sort of thing. But then you see the whole thing come full circle. And it's like, okay, they can not only resolve these, traumatic childhood experiences really fast, they are able to kind of climb over it and become something different. And I thought that was TWD impressive, rather than the killing walkers thing and all that stuff and taking apart sirens and whatnot.
That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, when you put it that way, that's beautiful. However, I just wish, I agree that that it should be harder. It shouldn't always be easy to kill the zombies. We should see some struggle. What I just didn't like was their method, in that, they were hitting it across the head with the blunt, with the flat side of the spears instead of, that just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and to your point, like that scene where they were trying to take them down, and that snare, snare of barbed wire, that was a little weird. That was a little weird that they chose that moment to kind of, let's step back from being able to kill them.
Yeah.
That was I did call that out at the time too.
Yeah, but I loved that idea that they had gotten ensnared in the barbed wire and they're just moving along. I'm surprised one or more of them hadn't fallen before, that they encountered our survivors.
That out of the way, we move on to another subject with which we all agree: walkers, or rather empties.
It seems like with all of the shows, this is the best part, where they're actually reaching back into their brains to try and come up with a new presentation of a zombie that we haven't already seen.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't become rote and boring for us.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree.
My favorite so far on World Beyond anyway was the wasp walker.
Oh, okay.
Hornet Ghoul. Hornet
Yeah.
Ghoul was the best. When it opened its mouth and they're like, "What's that noise?" And that was pretty cool.
I was so excited watching that scene. I'm like, God, all these years later, and they still get me so excited.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's what keeps coming back. We love the magic of this. That's where they get us. And I love that. Yeah.
Oh, I thought of the Mummy instantly after that scene.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder if that's where they got it from.
Yeah, maybe.
And if they did, that's totally fine. Like, art should be re-envisioned and reused and recycled, as long as it's different. There's 5 different things about it.
Yeah.
So.
By the way, that came straight from Matt Negretti's deepest fears, by the way. The whole idea of holes in things, that was a major thing. I liked that he embraced his fears and went with it. In case you wanted to know, it's trypophobia. TRYP. So it's Lizzie's turn to actually bring up the next topic of conversation for the roundtable. And she happens to really put a finger on, if the CRM is all about saving humanity, and it seems as though they are losing their humanity, do all of them seem to know about the shadier things that the CRM or the CR do in the background?
How does Dr. Abbott end up being a test subject? And maybe what was Dr. Abbott's feelings about test subjects? And did he even know? Is this secret research? Does even Leo know about this?
Oh, Leo doesn't know.
No, Leo has no idea.
Yeah, remember, she was lying to Leo about, that Dr. Abbott got a message in the place where you can't get any messages in about his sick sister, and he went home to Seattle. I thought that was a little weak. I'm like, really, that Leo bought that explanation? When he has to send the encoded, dot matrix printer messages to his girls because he can't communicate, yet somehow the other guy did. I thought that was a little weird. But yeah, she's totally bought into CRM. She's totally on the dark side there and is, using him. I thought it was a fun scene when she's like, "No more lies between us," and it's like, "You're lying to him right now."
Wasn't it Negan who said nobody knows they're the bad guy?
Yeah.
And everybody's the hero in their own story. Yeah,
everybody's the hero in their own story, and I feel like that with CRM, specifically Lila. I mean, Lila, she might be buying into all of this because she truly believes in the greater good. I use quote fingers, you can't see me. But do I believe she's evil? I'm not ready to go there yet. I think she's duped, just like everybody else is.
Sure.
Just like Huck is.
Yeah.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And once you realize you have to be totally on board and not even sound like you are doubting, to preserve your life, to preserve your freedom, your pseudo freedom, it has to be terrifying.
Yeah.
Or even like if you're coming from that Because I'm thinking even about Lila and how maybe she's coming from this position in earnest, meaning, oh, everything's great, everything's fine, you know, so why would I be terrified? But it's only later on that you figure it out, and then that maybe there's something going on here. Or, oh, it was a sacrifice for the greater good, Sam, whatever happened to Sammy boy, like, it could have been anything, you know? And because we may be attributing to malice which could best be explained by stupidity.
Yeah, that guy could
An
have just
accident
died.
in the lab.
Yeah.
It
Hanlon's
looked like
razor.
he had a bite on his chest.
Yeah, he did look like he had a bite.
Yeah, or in his stomach, the abdomen area or whatever.
Yeah.
It is. But yeah, maybe he was a dick. You know, like it could have been as simple as that. Oh, he tried to hit on Lila and you know, oh, I'm jealous of Leo. We don't know.
I'm hoping that in the next season, for all that we haven't seen of the CRM, that we are going to see a lot. Like we're really going to get behind that curtain.
Yeah,
They haven't shown us much.
So
the Iron Curtain.
Consignments, anyone? Work camps? Anyway, I move on to talk about Pivot! If you had to pick a favorite character, which would it be?
I think my answer's obvious. I got to go with Silas.
Really?
But you have reasons. You should tell me why.
Yeah. What are your reasons?
My son's name is Silas.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
It's a cheat code.
Yeah.
I relate to him the most, but my favorite is Huck for being the most interesting.
Yeah, that would be my choice too.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, don't get me wrong, I love the Australians, so Silas would be right up there. But yeah, I would be Huck.
I think Hal Cumston I would like as a person.
I
think
don't know.
like
Have
that.
you guys checked out some of this other stuff he's done? He is a really funny dude.
I know that he's funny.
Hilarious. Yes.
Totally different
He's so
character. Hal is not. I mean, Silas is clearly a character. You know, there's very little of Hal and Silas. He's very funny.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, and I am, I have loved Elizabeth Ormond ever since
Chocolat.
Legends of the Fall.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And so I was super psyched that she was going to be on this show. But when I think about it, we just haven't seen enough of her.
Yeah.
And I was super jazzed about Annette, you know, when, you know, finding out she was going to be on the show because she was so awesome in The Americans. And I love to, you know, follow actors that you enjoy their work, you know, and the characters that make. And I'm looking at her top to bottom, like Kim and I even looked into this, like, is the overbite real or is that part of her character affectation? And it's actually her, you know? And with some people that would make them look terrible, but instead, like, she's just beautiful. She's got this natural beauty about her. But then we see Huck and she's like the epitome of a tomboy. And I think because initially she comes across as so simplistic and one-dimensional that when it's revealed that she's actually a spy again, that she becomes so much richer. And that's why she ends up truly, not just because I loved her in The Americans, she's truly now my favorite character because now I want to know what her journey is going to be. What are her real pains that we, you know, and not just we're really split between whether or not her Marine background was real or not, but what's her real pain? What disappointment did she give her mother and others that her mother had to go to bat for her?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
The incident.
What is that depth? So Huck is mine.
I'll say this much. I was going to shoot from the hip, go with instinct and say Alton as a character just because of that. The last few episodes mostly, but I am a little bit caught between him and Hope. I think a little bit because early on I noticed a couple things that she did actor wise that really impressed me. Subtle things that you wouldn't think were anything at all, like the way she when she was having her first talk with Iris about what happened in the past. There were like the way she had initially was going to go for the Jupiter bead under her neck, you know, at her necklace, and then abstain from it. I just like that subtle move. There were things that, like, as a character, I thought were genuine and authentic. And then just as the series progresses, you realize, you know, I had hated her at first, period. I did. I was just like, I don't like this guy. I don't like. I remember talking about Daryl that one season 9, like how much I hated him not copping on, you know, at the time. And then later on, I kind of sided with him. But case in point, hated Hope. And then later on throughout the series, I realized what she was going through. And then I find out that like I really, really like seeing this underdog who treated herself like shit the entire time, you know, realizing that, okay, wow, I'm like the smartest person in the world. Who knew? And now like you get that foisted upon you, a person who's been hating on themselves since 6 years old, you know, and then how do you deal with that? And so I'm very eager to find out how this works out in real time.
I'm surprised, Rachel, that you chose. I mean, I can understand why you chose Silas, but the way that you've gone on so much about Elton, I thought he might be your favorite.
He's definitely up there. As of right now, I'm the most worried for Elton. Silas is still my favorite character. I mean, the name, obviously, I mean, that's just what it is. But even more than that, I just really enjoy this character. He's somebody, you know, everybody thinks they know everything about him. They look at him and they think they know what he's about, but they don't. You know, he's so much more complicated and deeper than anybody even realizes. And I think Hal Cumpson just really plays this character so well. You know, he's this gentle giant, and I just love it.
Yeah, I like him also. He's the underdog that maybe it's the teacher in me, because like I would be drawn to him, you know, to try and bring him out. But he's definitely the underdog in this story, and that's what I find attractive.
I think the underdogs will surprise us the most.
Yeah.
Which is why I went to Hope on that one. Yeah, in a ways.
Well, who wants to give their rating first?
Is this one is the best or one is the worst?
One is the best.
Oh,
so,
okay.
you know, 1 being awesome and 5 being no comment.
I'll go first. I want to give this one a 4. Of course, I immediately mess up the rating system because I'm thinking 4 out of 5 stars. So in their terms, I am thinking a 2 rather than a 4. I mean, and I said I want to give this one a 4, but
are you going to?
I think I'm going to hold on that one. But I like the thing I liked about this the most is that I threw away what I was expected to see and then embraced what I ended up seeing. Obviously, there are some holes here that we can poke, but being a person who does suspend a lot of belief in order to kind of let the story in and let it take over, I give them credit for standing firm on telling their own story. So, and which was beautiful in the way that they told it, which is very unlike Fear the Walking Dead and very unlike The Walking Dead, you know, focusing on the beauty of the apocalypse more than anything else. And then making that almost the theme, you know, behind all the scary CRM stuff, which is a different kind of scary. So I'm going to give it a 4. Not perfect by a mile.
Yeah,
right,
4 out of 5 stars for you. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a hard time gauging this season because everything inside of me wanted to compare it to Fear the Walking Dead season 1, which I hated. So if I'm comparing it, I mean, I'm going to give it like a 10 out of 10, right? By comparison. If I'm to judge this on its own, I'm going to shoot right down the middle and give it a 3. I think there were a lot of things that could be better, things that we, as viewers, I would have liked to see. I think for a first season, it was what it should be. You know, we met these new characters, we learned about them, we have questions answered by the end of the season, and they gave us new questions to ask leading into the next one. So I think they did a really good job with that.
Agreed.
Yeah, solid C.
Average.
Yeah.
Average.
Pretty good.
Maybe a C plus. C plus.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, I'm going to borrow something from the Billboard music charts. I'm going to give it a 3 with a bullet because I expect it to be better next season.
Okay.
Not bad. So like a C plus.
Yeah.
There we go. 2 C pluses. Steve?
Yeah, I hate to. I hate to bring out the rain to
It's a
this
perfect
picnic
placement.
here. I'm going with a 1 star. And
I thought maybe a 2. We'd squeeze a 2 out of you on that. But yeah, all right.
you
Yeah.
know, maybe a 1.5 if that was
1 with a bullet.
There you go.
And I think that my reasoning for it is Dave, you mentioned the willing suspension of disbelief, and I am when I'm watching stuff, whether it's a movie, a show, whatever, I totally buy into the concept. Whatever you're selling, I'm in. Reanimated corpses, cool. I'm good. Absolutely. sign me up. But once you get past that, the one thing that just drives me absolutely crazy is when characters make decisions that when I'm watching going, why are you doing that? There's no way you would ever make that decision. And this show did that too much for me, that I couldn't get into it. And I'm like, yeah, let's go to the high school. Sure. Okay. And whatever. I mean, there were so many moments in this season where they would do things and again, I'm not the target audience, so I get it, but I'm just like, yeah, that's a dumb idea. I would do that. So it really took away from the enjoyment. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the points that you guys made, I'm like, I never really thought about like the beauty of the apocalypse the way that you described it, Dave. And now that I'm rethinking, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so many moments where they showed how the ghouls have kind of integrated into the world and become part of it. And there is beauty in that, even though it's violence at the same time, or potential violence. But it still wasn't enough for me. So yeah, I'm going with one star. So we'll see what season 2 brings. Maybe it's going to ratchet it up now. Maybe now they've gotten to the CRM, they're in New York and everything, and we'll see what happens. But I would say 1 star, do not recommend.
Are you going back for the second season?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. Yeah,
I figured. Yeah,
absolutely.
I have to say it was high praise to get Steve to even say that some of the things that we were talking about moved him a little bit. Now, you guys know us. We try to bring out all voices and opinions to try to basically tackle how we feel about them, what the values and the merits of them are. We do try to, in our own way, convince other people to see the other side of those arguments, even if they're not our own. We're not in the business of making fun of people or trying to dress people down, tell them that they're wrong or whatever, anything like that. So when Steve said some of our analysis moved him, it was really touching. Oh yeah, so you remember when I said that Lizzie had met Joe Holt, the actor that plays Leo Bennett? She actually goes into it a little bit more here.
He was working on the set that I'm working on right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
So, I was setting up my classroom.
Just to be 100% clear, Lizzie is an on-set educator.
And it was the former accounting office, and they had all the cast pictures on the wall, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, where have I seen him before? And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, it's Dr. Leo Bennett. How bizarre is that? So then I start scanning call sheets, is he going to show up, and thankfully I didn't have to wait very long. So so that's how I saw him. And when we met, he was getting microsound, and I was like, is that Dr. Leo Bennett? And he looks at me like, that sounds familiar, but I can't place it. That's what it looked like. Because he, I don't think he's a well-known actor, so he's probably not used to getting recognized. And, being on a set, he probably wasn't expecting to meet a fan.
Makes sense.
But I can attest to the fact that he was very congenial, very warm, and shared anecdotes. Not a lot, because the last thing I want to do is get in there and he's supposed to be getting into his character mind. So I don't, I generally don't speak to anybody because of that.
So I cut out a lot of the back and forth that we had about whether principal photography was completed for season 2 or not, or post-production or what have you. And then Rachel actually brings up the fact that, well, we already confirmed it.
Didn't Alexa say in her Cameo video that they were going to be filming soon?
Yeah, actually, that's right. That's right. Rachel bought me a Cameo from Alexa Mansour.
Nice.
She just showed that.
Very cool.
It's really cool.
What did she say?
She's Merry Christmas. I'm a Jewish.
Right.
A lot.
Right.
No, I thought it was, I looked beyond that. I was like, oh, beyond that. No, it was very nice of her. It was very nice of Rachel to use that as a tool of manipulation.
I was just excited to hear her say Squawking Dead.
Love it. Use Cameo to get yourself a good plug for the show. Good.
Right. Then I started thinking, can we book more of these people and just have them say the name of our podcast? Can we use that?
You should. Yeah.
It's dicey. It's dicey and expensive.
Why not? We pay for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And how much does an Alexa Mansour charge on Cameo?
You know what? She's very, very reasonable.
Is she? Okay.
Very, very reasonable.
A piece of candy? Reasonable?
Not that reasonable.
Not that reasonable.
I'm so embarrassed for you, Lizzie.
Get used to that feeling.
Okay, so moment of truth. What does Lizzie rate The Walking Dead World Beyond's first season?
I did forget to mention that I found the scene with Elton and Percy where Elton is imagining Percy talking to him. I just found it exceptional. I really thought so much of that. And that was one of the things that kind of would just not make me give it a 0. But after this discussion, I feel illuminated by the other opinions, because poor Kim has to deal with me every week that we record. And I'm just like, oh my God, Kim, the wigs, and we were limiting it to 2 things. We would limit it to 2 things. And invariably, one of mine would be the wigs. And I wouldn't discuss anything else, One week, I think it was, I hate this show. And then I love Huck. Those were my 2 things, But after listening to you guys, it revealed to me that there was some depth. And, I can be my own worst enemy with these things where I get stuck in a rut and I can only see the bad wigs. I can't see what's happening underneath those horrible wigs. And I miss out on some of the nuances. And, I'm the poorer for it. And of course, like Steve, I'll be there season 2.
That's right.
This is what we do.
Yeah, I was thinking that the whole time.
We're franchisers,
we're fanatics.
Yeah, we are. We totally are. Like, if they asked me to host a panel with the girl that plays Iris, yes, I would do it.
I would love, don't get me wrong, I would love to sit down with all of these people and talk to them and hear their process and what their thoughts are on their character. That would be fascinating. I just don't think the product is all that great.
No, it's not that great. And it could be better, and I have hopes that it will be better. I'm hoping that the second season really is on fire, because I'm hoping that the shift is more on CRM and the inner workings of the CRM, because that's why we're all watching. We want to find out exactly what the CRM is all about.
Right.
Like, how can these people be so determined, and how can they remove the self from themselves so that, when the soldiers get off the helicopters, they're like robots. The guns come up in unison, like they are all locked into one another. And it surprises me that they didn't just kill Silas. So the order must be take them alive. So why do they want them alive?
Yeah.
And
We've done that too.
Yeah, it's like there's definitely more depth here than I initially perceived by watching the season. And many of the episodes I watched multiple times, like I put myself through it and I wanted to be in love with it, I think, learning the lesson with the first season of Fear, not knowing what to expect and then not getting what you wanted out of it, but sticking with it. I am moving forward in faith, and therefore I am giving it a 3, not a 3+, not a 3-, not a 3 hopeful or whatever.
A C.
A C. Yeah, because in the end it was average.
Yeah.
Whoa, Dave. What are you doing? It's not your show. Wait. I wanted to dovetail on something that you said, though, which was like you were saying about Fear the Walking Dead season 1, expecting something and getting something differently. Knowing that, I actually dialed it back and said, look, whatever you think this is going to be, stop it now. Because first of all, they may have moved away from that point. So like it may not be as much CRM as you would have liked. See, and if I go in thinking that, of course I'm going to be disappointed. So I said, you know what, dial it back. Don't be like Fear the Walking Dead. Just treat it as its own thing, and then maybe you'll see things that you wouldn't have seen if you had those preloaded expectations.
Right.
So yeah, that made it a lot easier for me actually to really enjoy it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did go in with the CRM expectations. I thought we would see more, but I did also go in with an open mind. And then now it makes me feel like I didn't, because
rewatch.
Live stream.
Far more aggressive out in the world than they are.
And that's where we'll leave you, folks. Thank you for joining us. And I wanted to bring Rachel on for some parting thoughts as we bring it on home. What were your impressions from this whole podcast? Obviously, like, their podcasts are a lot different than ours. I mean, they're clearly a lot more critical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that's the right word, right?
I think it's probably the nicest word I would use. Yeah. There were some moments it got pretty heated. There was a couple of times I thought, man, do they like the show? But I get it. I mean, a lot of the points they made were, very valid. So I'm always open to hearing other people's opinions, even if I don't agree with it. I think we say that all the time too, right?
Yeah.
But I especially was impressed with how it was structured, I guess. Like, we went into this kind of knowing how it was going to go. I thought that was different and kind of cool.
So meaning like how organized it was.
I mean, we tried to be organized. I think we went a little off the rails a few times, but that's our specialty.
Yeah, exactly. We that's our fault, actually.
I bet it is.
We just totally infected the conversation. That's why I kept that little thing at the end was like, wait, Dave, it's not your shit. Stop talking. Oh God. And I had to cut that out, by the way. I had to edit that a little bit because I literally retread over a point I made previously too. You could even tell from what I left, that last bit, knowing that you're going to get a whole other story, with not a lot of tie-ins, not a lot of crossover. Like, yeah, you really have to kind of realize it's like I wanted to bring this up, but like, it's like going out with someone new. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, it's important not to carry the baggage from the other relationships. Because why would you want to treat the new thing just like the old thing?
Yeah, but it's hard to leave that baggage behind, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if the baggage is the other person's sister. No, but still, I think it actually makes the point because however the same they may even look or maybe even act, they are a different person,
Mm-hmm.
Talking about dating sisters.
You're right, though. I mean, you have to go into it with an open mind. Try not to make comparisons.
Yeah.
Try.
I mean, you can't help it, right? Obviously,
right.
Especially when the sisters look so alike. But yeah. But so keeping that in mind, like even like the fact that they look so alike or they're in the same family, like the fact that exists, means okay, do your best, right? Do your best not to treat them as the same person.
Yeah.
Just because this one person abused you, that doesn't mean the other person will. I think I'm bringing my own baggage into this. Yeah, I found myself at first, at least, trying not to talk too much because I actually knew what I was getting into. I know these two shows, I like them, but obviously acknowledging that in many ways we're nothing like them.
Yeah,
I think because the seat of how we make our analysis isn't really just like as fanatics, but what I like to try doing is go deep. Like in one sense, psychologically. So I'm not coming at it from like a fan perspective. I'm coming at it from a human perspective. That's how I kind of really approached Squawking Dead to begin with. I don't consider myself like a huge fan. Like, I mean, I love the shows. I love watching them. But like, I wanted to come from a perspective of just a human in the universe trying to actually take what we see and then like basically tell people why it's important in life. So like that's how I wanted to approach Squawking Dead. And then like because of that, and I don't know, I mentioned this on AMAs, but like at the time I was just kind of like, well, what's the point in fangirling over everything if I can't derive some sort of greater meaning? Like there's just so many things in life where we don't do that.
Yeah.
Where we just eat and binge and then we don't really take anything out of it. We just enjoy. But like, why not, binge and appreciate and get some meaning out of it? Like I can easily like equate all out war to what's going on nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like at some point, somebody has to say, I think we've had enough, and that's kind of my point. You know what I mean? So which is kind of like why we're able to be less quote unquote critical, I think, or we've been able to maintain.
I don't know. I have a really hard time being critical of things that I like,
Yeah.
And I really enjoy these shows. I don't know. I guess I definitely spoke up about some criticisms that I had, but I don't know. It was more like pet peeves, I feel like. I don't know. Or like personal opinions, I guess.
And that's important too, right? I mean, it's important to kind of pick things apart. And the Triceratops horn, I think we all dunked on that a little bit.
A little bit.
But and that's the other thing, right? Like, 'cause I try, like, obviously it's worth mentioning, but like if something is so low hanging fruit, it's so easy to say Triceratops horn, fuck it. Like, it's the stupidest thing ever. Let's move on. It's like, it's like kicking somebody while they're down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Like, it's too easy. But other than that, no, I thought it was really rewarding. I think they needed us, and I think we also, in some sense, needed them. Mm-hmm. We need to know the full spectrum of the kinds of fans that, watch these shows too. A lot of people aren't going to cop on to the way we do things too. Mm-hmm. We have a very special show, in my opinion, which means the fact that The Walking Dead is so niche to begin with, like a Walking Dead podcast, but then like the Walking Dead podcast that isn't so critical, that celebrates the love of the craft.
Yeah.
But then also drives greater meaning and is also like roughly around 2 hours or more to listen to.
Our show,
it's niche upon niche and niche.
Our show is special in every sense of the word.
Every
sense.
Toot toot, the short bus is coming. Anyway, so cut this out. Just cut this out, Dave. We know you hate kids.
Oh my gosh. Before I started doing this, I didn't really listen to podcasts. I mean, I still don't listen to a whole lot of them. I don't really have a reason. I just never really did. I didn't realize that podcasts were such a huge like thing, really. So the fact that, you know, they wanted us to come on their show, I was like giddy. Like I was excited. Like I'm like, really? Really me?
Oh, little old me.
Yeah. So it felt really, really good. And then to have the conversation with everybody there was even more rewarding, honestly. All the opinions, all the theories we talked about, things we want to see, what to expect for next season. It was just a really good conversation, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like I said, I've listened to them here and there. They do branch out a little bit and talk about other things outside the Walking Dead universe. Obviously, Brains Gone Bad they've reviewed the Korean zombie series Kingdom. So things like that. You know, Aim for the Head does the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it is about the greater universe or the greater zombie horror sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But listen, you know me, my life is practically devoted to this podcast, so I don't listen to them quite as much as I would love to. Mm-hmm. And I think they are great. I love listening to these guys talk. And, you know, I've been trying to make a little bit more of an effort lately to kind of listen to some of their episodes as it relates to the Walking Dead universe. It is good to get out there to kind of, you know, meet with the minds. And I have to admit, like, and I did mention this in the, you know, throughout the narration, was that it was really, really interesting. I did not expect them to be moved by some of the things I was saying. I did not at all. Like I was saying, we don't expect it. Like, we just throw it out there. We give people food for thought. And then the fact that they were able to spit out immediately that, like, you know, I hadn't thought of it that way and it really is getting me to think a different way. That was so rewarding for me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And high praise too for people who are, you know, tend to be on the critical, you know, and tend to be more on the dunk culture train, which is, look, again, that's all to say that they're just a podcast, because most people do. So the fact that we choose to do otherwise is just, it's a hard and active choice. But you know, we do it. I'm not saying we're better than anybody. Yes, I am. No,
just a different. It's just a different approach. That's all.
Yeah. It is. It is. Sometimes it is a hard choice. It is a hard choice. And other days, like the fact that we've been flexing this muscle for over 3 years means that, you know, it's just a little easier. You know, it's like, okay, I'm going to choose not to write this note. You know, or I'm going to choose not to go into this that hard. It's too easy. Other podcasts are going to do it for me. You know, not interested. So it's good to see that other people do, and I need to be in the room with people that do that, so that we can kind of come together and we can move forward with like a complete picture of how we all think, how we all feel, and then maybe we can influence each other. Like, take for example Steve's observation about geography. Like, and you know, it would be nice to know where we are.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And then, you know, me coming back and saying, you know, but is it important? Or maybe maybe they were just trying to show that it wasn't important. You know, and again, I was shooting from the hip. I was trying to run defense on, but the whole reason for me doing that was because I hadn't really heard it before. And so it was kind of important for me to hear his opinion so that I can really, first of all, digest it, agree with it, and then even come back with something, well, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. And, you know, and maybe if I'm to say, you know, devil's advocate, yeah, maybe that's what they were trying to say, is it's not that important. You know, it's old world borders, you know?
That's true too. I hadn't really thought about that, you know, they are trying to erase the state border lines.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole, like, what is the point? Like, we're trying to cling on to the old world values, or the old, I don't know about values, but the old world
ways
or standards, let's say, when meanwhile it's up to you now to decide how you want to be, right? That's kind of the point. Who you were doesn't matter. Who you are is clearly something completely different. So it's one blob called West Mississippi and then East Mississippi, because apparently the geography changes, or the dangers change when you cross eastward.
Yeah, some of those things you just don't think about until the conversation's brought up, and then you're like, there you go, there's your answer.
Yeah. with you know, and I have to say, like, obviously like having Sharon on the show always, and Nisa, smart, dedicated, loyal fans with particular points of view in various degrees of fandom. But then, having these guys, seasoned people who know how to talk, who are very organized and have really in-depth thoughts. Like, I found that when I was editing this episode, listening to Lizzie, I realized how much alike she and I are, and how first of all, how verbose that we are. She's definitely more well-spoken than I am. More critical, but a bigger, big thinker, kind of like me. You can tell she's been thinking about some things for a while, and then she's been meaning to get them out, and then she does form her thoughts, and she spits them out. It's like, I want to listen to every word. She's got my attention. Whereas Kim is just like, yeah, and The Walking Dead is great. And then,
see, that's me. You're Lizzie, and I'm Kim.
she's gets to the point. She knows what she's talking about. Boom, ba doom, ba doom, ba doom, and it's done.
I cover more me and Kim cover more like the surface, and you and Lizzie dig down deep under the bedrock.
Oh, don't sell yourself short.
No, I'm not. That's my comfort level.
My comfort level is surface.
I call it like I see it.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm good with
definitely a value. Sometimes I don't. Well, in any case, thank you all for listening to this heavily edited. It's basically half the length. The link to the full podcast is in the description, as well as the links to both podcasts, Aim for the Head and Brains Gone Bad. I've been David Cameo. Thanks for joining us. And hey, if you want to rate this podcast, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. 5 stars and eggplant is all we need to know that you love us. And if you want to write more, give us some notes, tell us what we did right, tell us what we did wrong. It's always a great place to kind of let us know how you feel. Talk to us in the ratings. It's a great way to kind of boost our visibility. And also, if you want the unedited version of this outro, buy us a coffee. It's follow us at ko-fi.com/squawkingdead. Just following us means you know what's going on. If you'd like to buy us a coffee, it'll give you 30 days of access to our supporter-backed content. And if you subscribe to a coffee a month, the party just keeps on moving. And Rach, what a great episode. It's great to hear your voice again, by the way.
Yeah, glad to be here.
All right, and let's say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.